Let's elevate your drums from this to this. Hey muffins! Today I'm gonna build the drum bus I use on all my productions. This thing sounds great on hip-hop, pop, house, even live drums. Let's get right to it. Let's start by grabbing a channel EQ. It's a 3-band EQ that sounds especially good on drums and vocals. Let's just boost the lows a little bit on this, around 1.1 dB, and that's all we're gonna do. Next, we'll create another channel EQ. This one is gonna be a bit more intense. Let's bring the lows up around 7 dB, the mids around 3 dB, and the highs around 3.5 dB. Let's also bring the output down on this to compensate for some of these changes, around 3.6 dB. Now if we listen, it's clipping super hard, as you can hear. So what I want to do is create a dry-wet chain on this so I can blend it in. Let's start by grouping the device so it becomes an audio effect rack. And I'll add a new chain. I'll name this wet and this one dry. This is a really simple way to mimic a dry-wet knob on effects that don't have one built in. Let's hit the chain button and drag each of these small blue lines until they reach the other side. On the first one, if you hover and see the bracket icon, you'll be able to drag it over and create a slope. On the other side, we'll do the same thing, but bring the slope in the opposite direction. The dark blue lets us know where the signal is coming from. So as you drag the turquoise line, you will start with the completely dry signal, and it will start crossfading into the wet signal. I'll just sweep through this until I find the sweet spot. Sweet. Bear with me. I know this is clipping pretty hard, but soon it's gonna sound amazing. Next, let's bring in some multiband compression. It's in the dynamics section. Let's go to multiband dynamics and then drag on the multiband compression preset. I'm not gonna make many changes to this compressor. Let's just raise the high crossover to around 2.3K. I'm gonna bring down these outputs on each band. Let's bring the highs down around 7 dB, the mids down around 4 dB, and the lows down 7 dB as well. And let's take a listen. Now I'm gonna mix this in using the amount knob. Sounds good to me. Next, let's add some parallel compression. For this, let's start with another channel EQ. Let's turn the low cut button on to roll off some of the low end, and I'll boost the mids 2.1 dB. I'm also going to change the frequency of the mid band by selecting it here and bringing it down to around 548. And lastly, let's boost the highs 2.4 dB. Now let's add some compression to this before we group the effect. So I'll grab a glue compressor and select both devices to group them. On the compressor, we will set the attack to 0.3, the release to 0.4, and the ratio to 10. We are really gonna slam this. Listen to how intense the compression sounds. The threshold around -36 dB sounds pretty good. I'm gonna turn the soft clip on, and I'll bring the makeup gain up all the way. Now that we've completely slammed this, it doesn't sound good on its own, but it's gonna sound amazing layered behind the dry signal. So we'll just create another chain below, and I'll name this parallel compression, and I'll just mix the compression in now. Now I want to add a little reverb. I've been loving the hybrid reverb lately. There's some amazing presets in there. Let's search for snare, and there should be 2 presets I want to use. The first is dark snare room. Let's drag it onto the chain. Before the reverb, I want to add an EQ so I can cut the low end before it hits the reverb. I'll group these together now, and then I'll create a low cut and bring it up to around 188. I'll bring down the Q a little so it rolls off a little more, and that's it. Now if we listen to it, you can hear there's not much low end. And that way we aren't going to get any muddy reverb from the bass or kick. Let's name this chain Reverb, and I'll create another one below with the dry signal. And I'll just mix this in. That sounds nice. I want to create one more reverb. Let's use the snare plate preset. Again, let's group this, add another chain, and name it Reverb 2. Great, let's mix this in. Now let's tame these drums a little. Let's create a drum bus, change the type to medium, bring the drive down to around 13%. I'm gonna turn on the compression and then trim this back, let's say around 11 dB. I'm gonna turn the crunch up a little bit, also around 13%. I don't want any dampening, so I'll bring that all the way up. And then let's just turn the transient knob down a little to around 0.13. Cool. I'm gonna bring the wetness down a little to around 70%, and then I'll bring the output gain down around 11 dB as well. Sick. Now we are no longer clipping, and we've also got thicker, shinier drum processing. The last step is to add one final glue compressor to bring the dynamics back up and add some clip distortion. This is what really makes it slap. So I'll bring in a glue compressor. I'll bring the attack up to 10. We'll do a really quick release at 0.1, and we'll leave the ratio at 4. I'll bring this threshold down somewhere around 11 dB. Yeah, cool. I'm gonna turn the soft clip on, which is my favorite thing about this compressor. It smooths out any clipping signals, which gives a really warm, crunchy texture. I'll mix this in using the makeup gain to find the pocket. It's lit. All right, so to top this off, let's add a utility and turn the mono bass button on. I'll bring it down to around 90 Hertz. This will leave everything below 90 in mono, while everything above can bask in its stereo glory. This also leaves you with a gain knob in case you want to turn your drums down past the glue compressor. I really didn't expect you to follow along with everything I just said. So if you want to download this patch, I have it for free $99 in the description below. Here's what the device looks like. As you can see, the insides are pretty much what I just showed you, but there's also a dope filter I added that sounds amazing on drum breaks. Let's take a listen to it on a few of my beats. Here's what it sounds like on some house drums. I'll start with it bypassed. Nice. Here's what it sounds like on some hip-hop drums. Lastly, let's listen to it over a chiller pop beat. Remember, muffins, I'm giving this device out for free. All you gotta do is click the link below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you muffins soon.